your pony knowledge by. Oh, better. I got a place where winning ain't tough to do. You wanna be cool, stable too. Your horse racing fantasy comes true. But no, stable duel.
Download the Stable Duel app and play today.
Big money up for grabs this weekend. We had to go a day early because we have so much to talk about. Matty, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great. Excited for this weekend, excited for the Derby preps, and excited for a big money day at Stable Duel.
Yeah, look at what we've got going on this weekend. Normally, we do our show Friday mornings with our buddy Barry. Shout out to the sniper, one of the real good guys out there. But this week, you guys helped me, or you helped me out in particular, because I'm heading to Dallas for a bachelor party this weekend. So, and because I think a lot of people are going to be really focusing in on this particular Saturday Florida Derby card and contest, we knew with the races are out. We know we got the morning lines now, so we could dive in to build our lineups a little bit tonight. It just made sense going a little bit early. Yep. And man, we got 14 races on the card for Saturday. Look at all these different options we have for contests this weekend. Friday at Stable Duel, you've got Gulfstream, Tampa. There's a free ride, Laurel, Santa Anita, and Sam Houston. And you better all out there be on your game in those free rides, because Matt's family is going to take you down if you're not.
Certainly my sister is going to take. Yeah, the
like,
DeSantis family we're spread, man. We got this covered.
Seeing the ball well right now. Everyone over there is. And then on Saturday, I know I'm going to put in a couple different entries in the Florida Derby game. This is a $40,000 prize pool at Gulfstream Park. Many of you out there are already going to be handicapping these races. And if you aren't, we're going to handicap them right now with you. We're going to go through the 14 races. We're going to sort of talk about, hey, these are horses in each race that I might use in my Stable Duel lineups. And so when we go through, very rarely do Matt and I talk about a lot of chalk. Now we're going to go through every race. So this time it'll be a little different. There'll be some races where we'll say, yeah, maybe you might spend up here. Maybe this is a chalk that I wouldn't mind spending, but there's a lot of money up for grabs this weekend, and actually a new track jumping in the party. Heyo Hawthorne.
Yep. And the great part is, if you go to stableduel.com, they actually have a blog up on the website that explains a little bit about Hawthorne. You know, if you don't know much about this, the track, it tells you a little bit about the trainers, the jockeys there. It tells you a little bit about kind of it gives you a little bit of a better feel for what Hawthorne's all about. So you can learn a little bit about it. People like my dad, who really just pay attention to the coast most of the time. You know, he knows about Naira, he knows about, the California track, but might not know about a lot of tracks in the middle of the country. One of his pleasant surprises this year was Sam Houston. He loves playing Sam Houston now. I think he's going to really love playing Hawthorne too.
Here's that blog that you were talking about. All the important stuff that you need is at the home base, is the command center, stableduel.com, where you can find everything out there if you're ever looking for the schedule, what they have going on right now too. And this continues on through tomorrow. So anyone that's watching right now, the entries are out. You can start to, even do a little handicapping if you want. Stable Duel just wants this game to be a big game. The more people that get involved, the more money we're playing for, Matt. So if this thing keeps growing, there's going to be more money that all of us are shooting for. They are actually going to be giving away money to a couple people that are the most social. So they will give away $500, a popularity prize to the most engaging social account to promote the game. Half of the prize is determined by who gets the highest combo of likes, shares, and comments. And then the other half is on creativity and quality of content, which I think is really cool, right? Because some people don't have big accounts or they don't have a ton of followers, but they can do some really, really good stuff out there. So they want to make sure that all of you get rewarded. This is cool. This is interactive stuff that we really like. Stable Duel, always thinking outside the box, just to try to get, when I was on TVG, my tagline for a while was the most a socially interactive show in all of horse racing. I just loved going back and forth with the people. And that's one thing that Stable Duel is really all about.
Absolutely. And I've seen a bunch of people get creative. I've seen people, hype the contest, and also, put a little poll on their in their tweet, where it's like, who's the greatest Florida Derby champion ever, or what's the, who do you have coming out, so it's a great way of, people are being creative about how you interact with each other. And it's been a lot of fun to see that. And it's great that Stable Duel is really giving back to the fans. I mean, we love talking about it and we love promoting it. I love promoting it because it's a really fun way to get in the game without having to worry about, I work a 9 to 5 job. It's hard for me to sit there and go, okay, I got to make sure I put my bets in on this
all
race,
day
my bets
long.
in on that race. Oh, well, I can't do that.
Yep.
Well, what I can do is set up my stable at 8 a.m.
Yep.
And I'm done with it. And then that's
and then you can look back later, see what happened, checked out, check in a couple times throughout the day, see where you stack up on the standings there. And it, there are days where you're like, dang, maybe it's a flip side, right? Where it's like, I don't have a ton happening today, but like, and maybe I'm in between paychecks or like I don't have that much money where I can play. Stable Duel always has free games, or you might have $5 or $10 or $20 sitting on your Stable Duel account. And then boom, you're in a contest, you're playing all day, or heck, you deposit you get a day or so to buy yourself some time. You're good to go. You put you get your contest in. It's just a fun way to be able to get some action all the time. We're going to get some big action this weekend with this massive game that we're going to be diving into. Normally you see me wearing my Stable Duel swag and shirts, but it's WrestleMania week, Matt. So I got to get the Macho Man. Oh, yes. I've been to the top of them. Everyone's got a Macho Man impersonation too, right? Like everyone wants to do the
little bit like Christopher Walken, a little bit. Everybody's got an impersonation. And listen, you talk about WrestleMania, maybe one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time, WrestleMania 3. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Randy Macho Man Savage. Not to dive too deeply into wrestling, but a match that was ahead of its time. And those two scripting out every single move of that match in a way that this was not done back in the early 80s.
We're going to dive into, Matt, you and I are going to have like
I know we're going to do we're going to do a pod.
You're right. Yeah. That was like on the top 5. Even now it holds up so well to this day. The pace, the movement, it was like art. You're watching it.
Those two are such good workers. It's out of
incredible and a little bit nuts too. That's what's great. Like the best of us are all a little crazy. That's what Macho Man was,
Macho was a lot crazy.
All of you would be crazy not to take advantage of this formulator exclusive with DRF bets right now. You still have a couple weeks to do so through April 15th. You deposit $250 into your DRF bets account, sign up for a new account. They will match that bonus and give you a $10 free bet plus 10 free formulator cards. And we are going to dive into the formulator cards that I speak of now. Matt, race number 1, we kick off at Gulfstream Park. Everyone that wants to follow along, we're looking at April 2nd. And we're jumping in race number 1. We've got 10 claimers going 1.70 miles on the synthetic. Now, what's nice about this 14 race card is that you're not forced into playing every race. You really can, with 14 races, you can pick 10 different races. You can maybe pick a race or two and double up if you'd like, but you do not have to. There is going to be at least a couple races where you're like, you know what? Don't feel forced in there. Wait till a race where you feel more confident.
Absolutely. No. And that's something I did for Pegasus Day. I did it for Fountain of Youth as well, where, I just sat there and I said, listen, I don't feel great about the early card. I don't feel great about the undercard that much. I really spent a lot of time handicapping the stakes and graded stakes races. So I'm just going to focus on those, 7 or 8 races, and I'm going to double up in a couple spots and do that. Now, for race number 1, I actually do like a play here. Nice. And so I actually like the number 4 Benefactor. This is a horse that is going off at 12-1. It's only going to cost you $750 at Stable Duel. And this is a prime example of a horse for a surface. If you look at the past performances of Benefactor, when this horse runs on the synthetic at Gulfstream recently, good things tend to happen. Stepped up to that starter allowance in December 26th and kind of, that was maybe a little out of its depth. But you look at the other two 10,000 claimers, you have, an 83 speed figure and a 76 speed figure for those two. So I just think, like I said, Benefactors are really good value. And here's the other thing is, you and I talk about it a lot, going back and looking at previous matchups against other horses. If you go back and look at Benefactor's past performance, well, the last time he was on the synthetic on December 4th, he beat Farley. Well, wait a second. Farley's in this race and he's at 5-1. So I very much so like Benefactor in this spot. I just think, now that you're on the synth, I think at 12-1 for $750, this is a nice horse that can get you some nice positive points and start the day off right.
Yeah, I didn't this is race what I probably would skip if I'm building my lineup around the one that I would if I have enough money for Long Beach Kid, I'm okay
Yeah,
with Long Beach Kid, who's just really logical and super
sure.
obvious in here, and a horse who's been good on the synthetic, top-notch connections. Saez jumps aboard. So this would be the one that I lean to. But yeah, if I'm building my lineup now and I need a little help in race number one, Benefactor makes a ton of sense as Matt has sniffed out. Like, just look at the races; they've come back productive. This is a horse who's done well when performing against other opponents in this race, and it will not even cost you $1,000. Now, and keep in mind when you're building your stable dual lineups, we're talking about a $50,000 salary cap. That's what you're
Yeah.
basing it off. You have to fill your lineup with 10 different horses. So you're at a $5,000 average. That's what you're looking for. So now, if you're playing the lineup like what Matt just did, and you in race number one, if you're using a horse that's only $750, well, now you're in excellent shape as far as your average is concerned. You can spend up in one race and be, you know, in perfect
You can spend
alignment,
$9,000 on a 2-1 horse
and
if
you're
you
not
want
even,
to.
yeah,
And you're
and
not, you're barely, you're not even at the $5,000 average. So,
yep,
and that's an important thing to remember because I think big days like Florida Derby, Fountain of Youth, Holy Bull, Pegasus, Gulfstream gets the reputation of being chalk stream,
yep.
that it can be a little chalky,
Mhm.
particularly on dirt in the big races. So, there are some spots, and we'll talk about a couple of horses, I'm sure later, where maybe you can go cheap in those big races. But it's also sometimes foolish to go against the favorites, and especially on dirt at Gulfstream in those big spots. Like the winner is going to come out of one of those top two or three in a lot of cases. So you're going to have to spend $7,500, $8,000, $8,500 to get the winner in those. So you're going to have to save up somewhere. And I think this is, a lot of times I like going to the synth. Barry, all three of us, with Barry included, like to try to identify these claiming races as places where you can usually go cheap and get a good value.
The next, see, once the first two races go, I will probably be in one of the dead last positions because I don't really like anybody. This is a race to me, big field, turf sprint,
Yep.
nobody that I really love. This is like a no thanks kind of race that I don't really want to spend up on anyone. I'm not very confident on anyone in here. So
Yeah.
I don't really have a strong opinion. I probably won't be using anyone in the first two. Do you like anything in race number two?
Nothing at a value. I mean, I think Richie's a
Yeah,
really good horse. The three
that's
at
the
three to
problem. Yep.
one, and that's I think that eight. I mean, if you're gonna spend up on a horse in this race, then I think it's makes sense. But it's a possibility that he runs second, and then you're sitting there spending $8,000 on a second place horse, and that kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth. But I mean, certainly a horse that I think acquitted itself very well last time out at that Grade 3 Gulfstream Park Turf Sprint. So, this is kind of a step down in class, but I think he's logical there. But again, you don't want to start spending up too much money early in the card and then get to the late end and not have anything left.
Yeah, and I do have a couple late that I know in doing my handicapping and how I'm going to build my lineup that I won't have to spend up a whole lot on. But that wasn't
Mhm.
the race that I would like to spend. Like I don't. We moved to the third. I
Yep.
wouldn't mind spending up in this race with
Okay.
a couple of the different options in here. It's a 1.5 mile race with the Orchid, and I think a lot of people will look towards the 2 Harakuja, who's
Hmm.
9-5. Folks will also look towards the 6 Beautiful Lover, who's 3-1, and the 7 Family Way, who's 2-1. I actually like Beautiful Lover the most of them.
I
Um,
agree. I agree
and
with that.
and so of those 3 in a small field where you don't have to spend up as much as a couple of the others, but I think Beautiful Lover has just as maybe an equal chance of winning along with the other 2. She's going to be forwardly placed. She can sit a little bit if need be. I think she's better when she's actually not on the lead. Like she got kind of caught up last time out and ended up
Hmm.
battling a little bit. She'll have a
Hmm.
target, strong finisher, Joelle aboard. So yeah, I'm okay. 3-1. That's $7,000 in stable duel. So it's a little bit above your average, but it's not a big field. I think there are probably 3 horses that feel like they're kind of on a tier above everyone else. So I feel pretty confident about spending up in this spot.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, I like Beautiful Lover the most out of those three as well. I do think I might, depending on how I decide to layer, and that's the thing, it's like you can layer these
Yeah,
entries in so many different ways. I
especially
do
with a 14 race card.
absolutely. I do think the 3 Scarabee is an interesting play
Nice.
at
Cool.
8-1 for $3,000. You have Jose Ortiz aboard, which is always
And this
you got to
horse was
take
not far
seriously.
out and not in a bad race. It was a half length
That
behind Beautiful
that's
Lover.
the thing is if you look, I mean, this horse last time out, grade 3 was a half a length and right behind Beautiful Lover.
Never
And
been disgraced ever.
no, this horse always turns in a game performance. And so
They
that's
would have.
something
They would have
where
always in every race they've run. They would have picked up stable duel points for you.
absolutely. And so for 3,000, you probably want this horse to finish around no worse than third. But how many times? I mean, it's rare that the top 3 horses all fire and finish 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
So I kind of wouldn't mind playing Scarabia,
No
knowing
problem with this
one
horse.
of those 2 is probably, if 2 of those 3 may run well, one of them may not. I think Scarabia, like you said, never is
100%.
disgraced. Makes sense.
This horse would be. I would much prefer Scarabia than the other 2 spending up on.
Yeah.
I do
I
think
agree.
this. I think this is the final race for Beautiful Lover. If I was reading
Oh,
that right,
interesting. Okay.
so I think it's always one of those cool things on the send off there.
It is. It is.
Beautiful Lover at 3-1 will be one of those 3 shorter price horses. Matt found you one Scarabia who will only cost you 3,000 and makes a ton of sense. 9 races. Every one of these races, this horse has picked up a check and would have picked up some stable dual points for you. Was only a half length behind Beautiful Lover back on January the 29th there. So the grade 3 Orchid goes as race number 3. Let's move back to the synthetic on this 14 race card.
And we should, as you say that, we should point out there's going to be thunderstorms in in South
we may
Florida.
be spending more time on the synthetic.
Yeah, we may be spending a lot of time on the synthetic. I mean, that's something when you're handicapping, you got to take into consideration how these horses make, deal on a different surface if the turf races get taken off, which I have a feeling certainly the early ones probably will. And I'm sure they're going to try everything they can to make sure the late ones stay on, but it's going to be tough.
Okay, Matt, where do you want to head in race number 4?
I just want to give a quick shout out. I know Barry's picked this horse before, the number 1 Allegorical. I hate the inside post draw for this horse.
Yeah.
But it's a nice horse, but I just don't like the inside post draw. I actually am going to go to the other Cassie runner, the 8 horse Hall of Dreams at 5-1. I think this is a horse, again, you have Jose Ortiz aboard. I mean, he's somebody I just trust a lot at the Gulfstream Park for a variety of reasons. I mean, usually it's just the results. This horse reminds me a lot of the horse that I picked a few times ago that ran against Allegorical, which is also a Cassie runner, Serve for Sure.
Yep.
Who was a horse that had a couple of really nice efforts up at Woodbine and then came down to Gulfstream and broke her maiden. And I just think that Hall of Dreams kind of fits that same MO, has run really nicely up at Woodbine. You saw progression from
the synthetic experience.
Yep, the synthetic experience. It has had a little time off, has been training nicely down here in South Florida. And like I said, for $5,000 or for $6,000 at 5-1, I like this horse in this spot. I think this is a valuable horse to play. The outside post position, I don't mind. And, has been running in, comparable, if not slightly higher maiden special weights.
Yeah, ran into a horse named Golden Glider who came out of that, who won the race and then went over to Tampa, won a first level allowance at Tampa, and then took a shot in the Sam F. Davis and didn't run all that badly in the Tampa Bay Derby. Was only beaten a couple lengths and when finishing 4th there behind Classic Causeway. So I have the 8 picked on top here. So I also have Hall of Dreams in stable dual lineups. There are 2 horses that I'm interested in. And so, like I said, I'm going to play multiple lineups. So I'll probably have Hall of Dreams in one of them. I thought Braille right next door was just a little bit interesting. This is a horse whose debut was not bad. Shug is not necessarily one that cranks them up to win their debuts anyways. Right. Now you're going to add the blinks. You're going to get Lasix for the first time. You're going to be making your 3-year-old debut. Naturally showed a little bit of tactical speed. You got a horse who got to work on the Gulfstream synthetic recently, just a little, roundabout just to get a feel for it, and has been over the Gulfstream synthetic a few times now. $750 won't cost you a whole heck of a lot in a race that's pretty contentious. Hall of Dreams makes sense. You talked about the 1 Allegorical. I wouldn't have a problem. The 2, I maybe wouldn't want to spend up, but obviously this horse fits. This Pletcher horse makes sense. Was beaten favorite, burned a little bit of money. Even the 3, whose figure might be a little bit low, but what was wrong with the synthetic debut?
Right.
At 40-1, and then ran on the turf and just maybe didn't want to go on the grass and maybe was a little bit longer than what they would have liked. And if you're hard up in this race and you don't have a ton, you could do worse than Refua, who
absolutely
has a decent second. And at 20-1, is not going to make a dent in your stable dual lineup at all. So I think this is one of those fun races where at least any of the horses that we mentioned, Braille, Hall of Dreams, I like from a betting standpoint. I'm sure people will make cases for Bandemir, but I think I'm not really as high on that one. I stacked them 7 and 8 towards the top tier.
Yeah. Yep.
Race 4 on the synthetic mat. Let's head to a stakes race. In the 5th, we go to the turf and we go to the Cutler Bay $100,000 stakes. Well, where do you want to head here?
I like the 6. I'm all over the 6 at 20-1. And so this is a horse that will cost you almost nothing, $250. This horse is getting blinkers on, which I very much so like, actually, because this horse has shown the ability to do quite well when it's running on the lead. But the real reason I like this horse is we talk about, again, looking at past performances. So this horse is going off at 20-1.
Yep.
The horse right above it, Main Event, is going off at 2-1. They both ran in the Palm Beach Stakes last time out. Sousa Summer, this 20-1 horse, finished less than 2 lengths behind Main Event. Now, wait a second. It's one of those where I'm like, well, now wait, this horse had some run, has shown some ability. This horse has yet to break its maiden. I understand that, but this is still a horse that I just feel is, at 20-1 is not really going to cost you much and has shown the ability to run with solid horses.
To me, this has to be, if I'm playing this race, this has to be the horse I use. It has to, because the other 3 horses that I would have liked that are all logical and more likely winners, but they're Smoking Tea, Red Danger, and Main Event.
Yep.
And they're just going to cost you so much more than this horse would in a horse who's been comparable. And you're right, was right involved throughout, had a little bit of stick. They got the blinkers going on. So I wouldn't be shocked if they get a little more aggressive here and say, you know what, sitting didn't work as much. Let's get in front with the blinkers on and let's just go. And that's even better in stable duel. Maybe you can hang around for a slice.
Yeah, and this horse has run this distance before. I mean, it's gone the mile and a 16th, finished 3rd at that distance. So it's not as if this horse completely fades when it's going on the lead at this distance. The speed figures are comparable to anybody else. And if you look, this horse, I mean, last time out, you're looking at Coinage, Main Event, Bueno. I mean, you're looking at really good horses. And you're also looking at, the one before that, you were looking at Big Invasion, Capture the Time. I mean, running behind multiple or next time out winners. So I really like Sousa Summer here. Again, for $250, that's just going to free up your stable. Again, if you want to spend up on a 9-5 horse, you can do that and still stay under budget.
Yep. That was the one for me, because I couldn't get to either of the others. And we talked about the comparable races and nobody else looked intriguing. If I'm playing this race, I'm playing the 6 Sousa Summer at a big, big price. Let's get to the Go Zapper, race number 6.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I like, we'll go back to the dirt here, 1 mile and an 1/8, grade 3, $100,000 up for grabs. I just didn't think there's very much speed on paper in here early on. And I thought the 2's got a big shot.
Yep.
Laughing Boy.
Yep.
Laughing Boy is going to be fresh. Laughing Boy hasn't raced since November. And the last time we saw Laughing Boy was on a sloppy racetrack. So we can even be a little bit forgiving about that. And what's wrong with this horse's recent form? You can put a line through the career debut at Churchill back in November of 2020. And this horse, after that race, was sent to the bench, showed back up in June of 2021 and ran really well, finishing 3rd. And then was sent to the bench again. Showed up at Saratoga going 6.5, had some trouble that day, but then in his second start back, he won, and he's been good since. And you know what you're going to get from him. He's got speed. He will catch a field that doesn't seem to have a ton. He's fresh. And I really, really like Julien Leparoux on the lead. I think he's been, honestly, because you think of him as someone who's more of like a turf come from behind rider, right?
Yep.
That's probably where you think of him. But I'll tell you, when he was out here in Southern California a few years back and he was riding at Del Mar and it was on the synthetic that year, I believe. And it was like it was a time when you had to be on the lead. And, and he caught on real quick and was just putting everything on the front end. And then what happens is he's so good at getting the horse to kind of get comfortable and relax that if you're out front and then he can get you to relax and just get happy, that you're just going to be a nice, happy horse out front. So I always like when I see him on a horse who I think is going to have some speed. because if he gets them out front, he's going to keep them comfortable and happy. Give me Laughing Boy at 8-1 on the morning line. This one will only cost us 3,000 in our stable dual lineups, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. This is where I was also going as well. I think that's just the logical play in this race. I mean, Fearless is a very good horse, but I'm not spending $11,000
No way.
on a
No way.
horse.
No way.
And so, yeah, I mean, you look at the rest of the field, and it's just nothing else really jumps out at me. I mean, Commandeer, the one is kind of interesting, but I just don't really trust that horse. And I also don't like the inside post position. And
just the getting beat in the Pegasus, I know we can toss it, but the layoff after the layoff, I just don't like it. You're gone for a few months, you show up, and then you get beat, you come back. Maybe you can save ground and be there, but I do think Laughing Boy just gets a couple lengths on him early.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think, this is, I also think just the benefit of that 2-hole, I'd much rather be in that than the 1-hole. And so, I like it. And this horse has shown the ability to run, well over a mile and an eighth. With the 2 back at Keeneland was a mile and 3/16. So this is a horse that can absolutely travel the distance and won't have an issue tiring down the stretch.
I wouldn't talk anybody off of this horse either. Capo Castello, the Fausto Gutierrez, second time in the U.S., didn't race for a long time. They're just trying to figure out where they fit. And then look at the race. You come here for your first start in 7 months, and you show up in an optional claimer at Gulfstream Park, and you run into a horse named Olympiad, who's just become one of the better older horses right now in training. He's won 3 races in a row, a couple graded stakes over at Fairgrounds, and he's looked really good, earning triple-digit Beyer speed figures in 3 consecutive races. Highest honors was also in that race, and he came back to win on the grass over at Gulfstream Park. And so I don't really hold that race against him all that much in, multi-race exotics and stuff. This might be a horse I throw in stable duel. It's difficult because he's a little bit more of a wild card.
Yeah.
This is the type of horse who, if he ran poorly and finished last and you lost 15 or 20 points, it wouldn't shock you,
right,
just because you don't really know. But I would not be surprised to see this horse like open up at, 4-1 or something like that.
Yeah.
Especially with the Rider 2's junior aboard.
Yeah.
This is a horse who's been a multiple grade 1 winner, group 1 winner in Panama. And so there is a little bit of class there. They just got to try to figure out. And from a distance standpoint, I have no concern with a mile and an eighth for a horse who's run much longer and gotten a mile and a quarter. But it's just always hard to find out where these horses stack up.
It is. And especially, I mean, it's one thing if you're looking at maybe sometimes horses coming from Brazil or Argentina. I think Panama, you don't see a lot of horses coming from there. So I think that's
really don't have a gauge for that.
It's
racing.
hard. But I will say, I mean, one of my favorite angles to play is second off the North American, the second start in North America. I mean, that's usually a good angle to play because the first time is coming off a layoff as well, usually, because the horse usually moves and there's a barn change. And typically there's a lot of kind of getting the horse ready. And so it's not just the second off the layoff, it's the second race in North America. They get used to the way the riding is different here. And so that's an angle I usually like to play. So if you need to save up a little bit of money, it's not a bad play to use.
Yeah, it's a horse who's got American breeding also, and Irad jumps aboard.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the thing is Irad can have his choice. I mean,
so he's not jumping on a horse who's got no chance here, right? So they're at least a little live, and maybe a horse to throw into some exotics or one or two of your stable dual lineups. About halfway home on this Gulfstream Park card for Saturday, April the 2nd. We've got a big stable dual contest that we're going to be playing in, and make sure to get social and use those hashtags and tag stable duel if you want a chance at getting a little extra money. Hey, how about, wouldn't it be nice if you win those stable duel social contests, you get free rolls into these games. You play a couple different lineups in your big Gulfstream Park contest for Saturday. It's only $60 to enter. Let's get to race number 7, Matt. This is the Sand Springs, mile and a 16th on the turf course. Where do you want to start?
I like the 7, Sugar.
We're on the same one here.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Yep. So I just think this horse makes a whole lot of sense in this race. Last time out, stepped up to a grade 3, the Honey Fox, and ran well. I mean, it had a little bit of a wide, trip and still kind of kept on, was making up ground at the end. And so this is a horse that's now returning back to that kind of non-graded stakes level.
An Italian who just won that race gate to wire. So it wasn't like there was going to be a whole lot of passing that day.
Yep, and Wakanaga had a huge final kick, and Navratilova is a good horse. I mean, so it finished me on some not solid horses, and
Mhm.
so now you're going back to this non-graded stakes level where you saw a lot of success previous to the layoff,
Yep.
and again you get Louis Saez aboard, trained by Safi Joseph Jr. When those two team up, you're looking at a 29% strike rate. So I like that, and again, I just think this horse really fits, and there's going to be a little bit of speed in this race,
Mhm.
or a fair amount of speed in this race. And so I think it sets up really nicely for a horse like Sugarfix, who can sit kind of in the pocket or a little off, in that 4 or 5 slot, and really make a nice run coming for home.
Yeah, and it's for me a lot of times when I'm going through and building my lineups and stuff, it's it's process of elimination, you know?
Yeah.
I start eliminating horses and I go just like what you were doing. Okay, the one traffic song, sure, but there's some speed there. This horse is drawn down towards the inside, and then right next door, you've got Grand Avenue Girl who's got some speed, and then you've got Stolen Holiday who's also got some speed, and their best races have been forwardly placed,
Yep.
especially going longer. You'll notice that Stolen Holiday can pass, but those were when sprinting.
Yep.
So anytime that she's been longer, she wants to be right up close. Now all of a sudden you've got all three of them, forwardly placed. I could make a case for the 4 Crystal Cliffs if you want to bet this horse, but it's
Hmm.
stable duel coming off the long layoff, probably a little shorter than what I'd want to spend
Yeah.
in this race.
Yeah.
Stunning Princess makes a lot of sense and would be no shock from a gambling standpoint. Ran into Bleecker Street last time out, who's just awesome. But
Yep.
if you have the ability to spend up, I wouldn't really talk you off of that one. But I look around and you start and now you kind of have to end up on Sugar Fix, right?
Yeah, and it's a
Who's left? Yeah,
yeah, and Sugarfix is a horse that likes to win. 25 career races, 10 wins, 6 seconds. I mean, this horse likes to get in the winner's circle. That's a really nice win percentage for a horse that is in this spot, and it's going off at 6 to 1. So, it has done well at Gulfstream, has done well at this distance. So I just like that combination. 6 to 1 is only going to cost you $5,000. That's your average horse cost when building a stable. So I think Sugarfix is a really nice play in the spot.
completely agree. We're on the same page in a few of these as we continue on to the back half of the card. And in this eighth race, this was one that I wrote up on the top of my page. Not a stable dual race. Big
Indeed.
big field, lots of first-time starters, going 7 furlongs, too many question marks for me
Yeah.
at least. I don't
Yeah.
have a strong enough opinion to make this a race where I wanna key in on.
Yeah, I like the 11, but the Bill Mott horse, but I don't. Yeah, I mean, this is one where I'm skipping this race if I'm playing
Mhm.
stable duel. And
Yep.
so, but if you're looking again, if you want to play this one, if you're not attracted to others, I think the 11 is not going to kill you at 6 to 1. It's $5,000. It's a
Look at the
nice.
dam of
Yep.
this one was 3 for 3, won the Suncoast. Nice
Yeah.
little breeding here. This was a horse who's, a half to a horse named Luke's Alley, and Luke's Alley was a multiple graded stakes winner, won
Yep.
the Gulfstream Park Turf Handicap, won a couple races up at Woodbine. Wanstead Gardens was another one that was pretty nice and was like a legitimate graded stakes caliber horse. So not a bad pedigree at all. Look at the Arifana,
Yeah.
who won the first 4 races of her career, won 5 of 6, including a stakes race there. Barahona was a winner. Just a pretty solid pedigree
Yeah,
for this
solid
one.
pedigree. Yeah, I mean the Empire Maker, progeny. And what I usually like looking at these is it's a Gainesway stable bred and owned horse, and I
Yep.
like it when they keep it in house. A lot of times
Mhm.
means they
They know
usually like
this
the
is a
horse.
nice one.
They know that's a
Yeah,
nice one. They gave it to Bill Mott, and so like I said, I probably will not use this horse. I probably will not play this race. But
the what's
if you're going to play this race, then don't overspend on a huge horse and spend a little bit less on this one, I think.
I think because I do feel like this horse is going to open up first click at 7 to
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and probably go off shorter than the morning line. So
Absolutely.
if you do play this race, that you'll probably get a good run for your money there. And from a value-based standpoint, you'll at least be on the right side of the margins with how you spend in this race. So
Yep.
I agree with you. From a betting standpoint, if this horse is over 7 to 2, I'm gonna bet this horse to win.
Yep.
But in stable duel, like if they broke poorly from way out, I
Yeah.
would not be shocked at all.
No.
And like we said, it looks like there's some ability in the mornings, but you just don't know. I
You don't
usually
know.
like Mott's so capable. but he's usually better with a race or two
Yeah.
under the belt, right? He's not
Yeah.
one of those get him cranked up either. So I think you sniffed out the right horse, but we'll
Yeah.
see how we build our lineups if we can afford to spend up there for
Yeah.
Easy to Love, who would be right on par, 6 to
Yeah.
1, 5,000. So it's not as if you're having to spend a whole heck of a lot. In the 9th race, the Pan American, we were on poor Abon last time out.
Just
Oh,
got the roughest ride. I mean, just
a brutal trip. Let's watch what happened with poor Abon last time
this was
out.
painful to watch.
Yeah, this was
and
bad.
and the thing is, Louis was having a good day. Louis
Yeah,
won
he
like
was.
3-4 races that day, and then
I
just
know.
gave this horse a baffling ride.
He's the one in this race, and Abon was coming into this race in excellent form. He just won the McKnight, and he showed that he can sit off a little bit in the McKnight. But right here, this is that we always talk about that spot,
Yeah.
right? It's the, oh, am I going to go? Am I going to sit? And all of a sudden, like that's like 3 lengths
Yep.
of positioning right there that you lose. And now all of a sudden you run up and then you stop and you steady
Yep.
and you were right up on the front and now you're in just a bad spot behind horses and it just keeps getting worse.
Yeah.
It's
It
like you're
didn't get any
shuffling.
better. Yeah. It got
No.
worse and worse as the race went on.
It did. You're just
And
shuffling all the way back with nowhere to go.
And that's why, I mean, you and I talk about it regularly. I typically avoid that post one. I just too many bad things happen from there,
Yep.
and
You gotta have a
unless
ton
you
of
have
speed.
really great speed. Yes,
And
unless you have
even
great speed.
then, if you're like a step slow and someone crosses over on you, then you're in trouble because it's like, oh, well, that's a speed horse, and now they're behind, so they're probably done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think, I mean, and that's why this is a race. If you're going to spend up, I mean, I think a bond comes back in a big way here.
I agree too. I'm going to spend up on a bond.
yeah.
I think I am.
I think Gufo's coming off the layoff, and so I'm
And
just not sure.
Gufo's too deep of a closer for me to trust. We know with Abon, and I would imagine because they got trapped and farther back, that they will be aggressive in
Yes.
getting close to the front or on the lead or right there. Look,
Yeah.
now they had to angle wide 3
I
deep
know.
and in between horses after all that shuffling. It's like, oh my gosh.
I know.
Brutal.
I know. And
Yeah.
and the thing is, Temple, who's 5-2, is a useful horse, but not at that price. I mean, Temple's a horse that I've used
He's
before in
fine.
Stable Duel.
He's on it. He's fine.
He typically he turns in an honest effort, typically hits the board.
He got a perfect trip.
He got a perfect trip last time out. And on top of that, if you go back and look previously, I like him when he's at a little bit of a price, like when he's at like 9-2 morning line.
Yeah.
Like something like that. Like, okay, I can, because he'll finish second and I can live with that. 5-1, 6-1, I can live with that. But at 5-2, I just can't use that horse.
No. And I'm fine in this race. If you're gonna spend up and you're gonna have a couple races where you want to spend up. You want to have a horse or two that you feel really confident about. Abon getting aggressive off of that. And it's not the biggest field in the world. And you know that you have a horse that's going to be forwardly placed in a race where there's not a ton of other speed.
And you're a little further outside this time. So I just, I think this is, and I quite frankly, I think Louis probably pissed at the ride he gave this horse, like what happened last time. Like I'm sure he's upset and wants to come back and win this one. So
any good athlete understands, and whether it was a mistake that he felt like it was his fault or whether he felt like he was just at the mercy of the racing luck or whatever happened, I guarantee you these guys and gals and these awesome athletes, when they go back and watch the film for whatever it was, they are double motivated next time to not make that same mistake, right? If we lose the next time, it's not going to be that way. It won't be that reason. We're going to get in a good spot. We're going to put ourselves in the race. And if somebody beats us, they beat us.
Yep.
But we're going to make sure we didn't lose because of a trip.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I agree. I think that's a good race to spend up. God, it's always funny. If you had listened to any of our like handicapping shows and some of the preview stuff that we did on that March the 4th day, or no, I guess it was March the 5th day, between that Abon horse and then Collaborate, you would have known that I didn't do very well that day with just a couple of the trips that these horses got. Because I really liked Collaborate coming into that last race. And this trip was just it was one of those where it's like they didn't really have a chance to do much, because it would have been like go so fast that we're gonna get up front. Hey Pete, how you doing, Pete Aiello? as Collaborate was the 8 in this race that we're going to watch back last time out. And it's like a fine start. It was right there, but you look towards the inside and everybody else had a fine start too.
Yep.
And now you're in this in-between stage where you better go or you better take a hold. And so right now, it doesn't look like you're in the worst spot because you're kind of sitting 3 deep, but then the 3 shoots up the rail. Now you're 4 deep, and then these horses come inside of you, and you're like 4, almost and a half deep.
Yeah.
As the 7 and the 4 shoot up, and they push you all the way. Well, look at the 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's basically in the 6 path.
Yeah.
Right now, when you look on the head on, because you can't really tell, he looks like he's actually closer than he is.
Yeah.
And he just got zero chance here. He's chasing Speaker's Corner, who's very nice and who wins this race gate to wire.
Yep.
So there's no passing, there's no movement. And this is the horse who's widest of all in this field. And he's got some ability. The problem is just from a stable duel point. I mean, he's 3-1. So, I mean, I prefer him to the other short price in here, but so I probably end up using him in at least one lineup or two, but this might be one of the races where I prefer him. Like Ford and Hill makes a ton of sense.
Sure.
Second off, the long layoff. This guy's going to take a big step forward, but I don't think I could pay up for him.
No.
So where do you go in here, Matty?
I'm all over I love Wayburn in this spot.
Cool.
I like Wayburn. It's at this price at 10-1 for $1,000. Again,
Eliminate Pennsylvania Derby, and then what do you got? Pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, and this horse has run against the best at the 3-year-old crop. I mean, this horse was on the Derby Trail, won the Gotham, finished 4th behind that incredible run by Bourbonic, but then came back and finished 2nd at the Pegasus by a neck. Comes back, runs decently at the Jim Dandy, decent enough. I mean, that was a tough race, and with the central quality, and then comes back and just something went wrong in that Pennsylvania Derby, and so
then you're sent to the bench
sent to the bench. You go to Brendan Walsh's barn, who's got a nice strike rate, actually 21% win rate coming back from a long layoff.
Yep.
This horse has been really keyed up, has been running some nice 4 and 5 furlong works, getting up to this. You got Tyler Gaffley on board, who's more than capable down there. And so, again, as a value play on a day where you might have to spend up for the Abans of the world, or some of the horses we're going to be talking about in a little bit, it makes a lot of sense, I think, for a horse that has shown a lot of class at this level, and at 10-1. And again, if you're sitting there going, I don't really want to spend on Collaborate, I don't really want to spend on Fort and Hill,
this is the horse.
Yeah, then you go to the 3rd place horse basically, and you go, well, all right, I'll pick the horse that finishes 3rd for $1,000.
And so it doesn't matter if Wayburn is a little bit short in this spot and can run a nice solid 3rd, pick you up some points, because that's fine. And this horse has the class and the ability. If they are right, they could win this race. Wayburn, Gaffleone jumps aboard. Always got to take that as a positive down there. They're ready to rock and roll.
Well, some days you have to take that.
The Collaborate. You saw the Collaborate one right there.
Tyler, man, when he is on, I don't know. I'm sure there are, but man, when he is on fire. And when he is off, sometimes I'll just scream at my television and be like, what are you doing on this horse today?
Streaky.
It's just so streaky sometimes. And I always seem to pick the wrong day for it. Yeah. Like when I fade him, he wins 6. And then when I'm like, I don't know about, I'm all right. I'm back on Tyler. He goes like 1 for 8 on favorites. I'm like,
there were a few for me. The one from the very beginning for me was always Bejarano out here in Southern California.
Oh, yeah.
That was the one. And it was funny because he would win at about a 20 to 25% clip in his good years when he was out here. And I will tell you, the 70 to 75% of the time that I played it, it was when I played it. It was always that way. And I was like, how does the math work out like this? It doesn't add up, It sure doesn't. But we've all got a couple of those where it just, when we zig, they zag, and vice versa.
Yeah.
We get to, how crazy. It's a big, long day, Matt, when the 11th race kicks off the late pick 4.
Yeah. Late pick 4. Yeah.
starting in race number 11 here. And we've got a mile and a 16th, the Sanibel Island on the turf course here. These are 3-year-old fillies. And I think the 4 sensitivity is very intriguing.
That's the play.
Right?
That's the play. We're on the same one. Yep.
There's not that much speed in here. Paco is going to get a little bit aggressive. I feel like
Yes.
this is the horse to catch. 12-1, only going to cost us 750. This to me is the big play in this race.
Yep. I totally agree. I mean, I always love how announcer Pete Aiello, the voice of Gulfstream Park, always gives a shout out to where Paco is. Like
Yep,
when
he
like
does.
any race, there's like, and Paco's on this, and it's like the 5th place horse or something like that.
Mhm.
And coming into the turn. But I think sensitivity is the way to go. I mean, that was a really impressive maiden. It was at this distance, so it's not as if the horse is stretching out. And which is a lot of times what you see with a maiden victory, then they step up, stretch out. They're
Yep.
not stretching out, so you know exactly what you're getting. One of the things I talk about a lot is I love seeing the workouts on the turf. That
Mhm.
last workout on the turf, 59.4, 5 furlong. This horse is feeling real good after that maiden victory. So I like this spot a lot. $750 makes a lot of sense, I think, in the spot. In a field that honestly, it doesn't overwhelm me. And
I
so
agree. This
I
horse
just
is going
think
to
this
get
is,
bet.
yes, it is. This horse is going to get bet big.
Yeah, so they'll open up they'll end up probably about half that. They feel more like a 5 to 6-1 shot in here, and just from a gambling standpoint, if you're looking for other horses to maybe throw into some of your exotics, like the 9 Ambitus, I liked it at
Oh, yeah.
Tampa last time out, and then just kind of
Mhm.
threw in a clunker. But if you put a line through that race and play this horse off the sweetest chant 2 back, they're obviously a player.
Yep.
With Saez jumping aboard for motion. My Philly Twirl has put back-to-back wins together, but sort of drawn towards the outside. So they're going to need to maybe get a little aggressive, which concerned me. But I just kind of kept coming back to sensitivity from who makes the most sense in stable duel in
Yes.
this race with the
Yes.
speed at just that price, only 750. And sensitivity is the play for me and Maddie.
Yep.
Late pick 3, Gulfstream Park Oaks. Matt, where do you want to head here with the 3-year-old fillies?
For me, this is where I spend up an obscene amount of money because I love
Kathleen O. You're a big
And
fan. Yep.
she's 11,000. I get it, like that, and that's part of the reason why I can spend 750 on sensitivity,
And
I can spend this, and I'm fine.
all early. You've had a lot of 10, 12-1 horses that are
Yeah.
1,750 that make a lot of sense, that are going to get bet. And so you can afford to do this now.
I just think she's really good. I Goddess of Fire, I'm not as sold on, so I'm
neither.
not as worried about the 5. And I actually like that she's drawing to the outside because this is a horse that tends to have some gait issues. And I would be more worried if she was breaking closer to the inside and you have those gait issues because now you get pinched. Now something happens, you get blocked in. If she has a gait issue, if she doesn't break well, guess what? It's fine. She's
Yep.
on the outside. Like she's got so much damn speed that it does not matter. Like she's always coming from behind.
Yep.
And so in some ways, I like that she's out of the way and like just keep her out of the way. And I just
Keep her in the clear.
Keep her in the clear. And when this horse kicks, man alive, she has a burst. And I mean, Secret Oath's probably more impressive, but I've just been blown away by Kathleen O, and who was really bottled up last time out and just managed to get clear. And once she got clear, made up about 6 lengths in a heartbeat. So I like this horse a lot.
Kathleen O, she drew the rail last time out. And Matt, she is one where I don't, like you said, I don't love the second choice here.
Right.
And so Kathleen O to me is a race where if you want to spend up, I'm completely fine with it. So she drew the rail last time out, and look at that tough start.
Just
way behind the group here, way out of it.
And I thought, oh, this is when it's going to turn into a pumpkin. Like she had kind of done this before, and I thought this is grade 2. This is a grade 2 race. This is much better competition.
Can't pull that, right?
Yeah,
no way that's going to work.
Pull that off. And she just, Outfox is a nice horse. Sweet Danny Girl's a nice horse.
Sweet Danny Girl, I really like that filly.
Yeah.
And she just goes right by this group once she starts to build up a little bit of momentum right here. You see she moves in between horses now.
Yep.
And this was her first start in a couple months. This was just her first start against Graded Stakes Company and just her 3rd career start. This was only her 2nd start on fast dirt. She got out of weight there, ran into a little bit of traffic. That's something that might have shuffled the horse back, but she's still just waiting.
Yep. You can tell she's just waiting. I mean, he knows
for the cue.
Yeah. Castellano knows he's got all the horse he needs under him.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I even thought like, God, she's got to go what's going to happen? Like, where's she going to find a spot? I mean, it doesn't look like, and then he just angles her out and then
Boop.
see you later. Like, here
Shakes
she
the
goes.
reins, and she
Yep.
goes right by this field in about 2 jumps.
Yep.
Kathleen O will be very tough in here
But
in a race
But
where
to your point, if you don't like that 5, then if you don't like whatchamacallit, if you don't like Goddess of Fire,
I thought the 2
then
inside horses maybe.
exactly. Then you can go cheap, because if you go, I don't want to spend for Kathleen O, I don't like the 5. Well, then somebody's got to finish second, even if you like Kathleen O up top. So I might as well go cheap and try to catch something underneath.
Cancel this, draws the rail. Joelle jumps back aboard.
Yep.
You can make a couple excuses for the goldenrod, and then the February race was the first start back, and they missed the break that day, so it probably needed that race. And then on March the 10th, they ran into a sloppy racetrack. So that's, you look back and you're like, oh, well, cancel this, hasn't run all that well recently, but you can make excuses when you go through. Oh yeah, that was the race that goldenrod, maybe a little tough towards the end of the year, put a line right through it. They bobbled, and the next race came. So it's one thing that I like to be able to do. Shout out CJ Thoroughbreds with cancel this. The Deuce is another one who, at 6-1, 3,000. I wouldn't talk you off this horse because there isn't that much speed in here.
No, there's not. And this is a horse that has progressively gotten better. I know she just broke her maiden, but I mean, this is, a horse whose, last speed figure is, certainly is the 3rd best in the field. And so, and it's shown progress. Yeah, absolutely.
In the Fairgrounds Oaks against Echo Zulu, didn't run poorly behind Echo Zulu and Hidden Connection. That's a nice animal, and she was behind Favor in that race. So if it's not Kathleen O, I have 1, 2, and 7 as my horses I like in here. And Kathleen O is no doubt the horse to beat. And depending on how you build your lineup, if this is a race where you can afford to spend up, I agree. And I know Matt's a big fan. And so the way that you've navigated through, this was a race where you have plenty of opportunity to spend up with Kathleen O. We got 2 races to discuss that remain. The 13th race, the grade 3 Kitten's Joy Appleton. So, mile on the turf course here. Matt, which are 1 or 2 that you're looking at in here?
This was one where I didn't have a good feel. This is a race where I'm probably going to skip in all likelihood. I just didn't have a great feel for this one. I don't want to spend more than I should on a horse that's not going to perform as well as I want.
That's a good call.
So there are races like that where you're like, well, this course could win or finish 8th. Like,
especially in a competitive turf field with a bunch of horses, if you don't have a strong opinion, skip. And this is one of my last races that if I end up playing, it's not one of my more confident ones. English B makes sense. I would never spend up on English B though. The horses who I would be okay with spending might be Safe Conduct, which could be forwardly placed in here. Second start off the bench. I wouldn't have a problem, and doesn't cost you very much with Paco jumping aboard at 15-1. And the other one would be down towards the inside with the 1 Noble Indy, another one who's got some early pace, can settle and just, save all the ground from the inside. This is a horse who's a claimer, but then stepped up and was 105-1 and was not disgraced in that race.
No, not at all.
So, saves ground. You get a little bit of a cutback at 1 mile and 16th, but I agree with you. I'm a 169 in late pick 4s and stuff like that, but stable duel, this might be a race that I skip, but I won't be skipping the Florida Derby.
No,
I do like a horse in here, but I'm curious to see where you want to go first. So tell us where you land in the Florida Derby.
I think this is another one, kind of like maybe the Kathleen O race, where there might be a horse that from a handicapping standpoint, I think Simplification wins this race. That said, from a stable duel standpoint, because I think there's a lot of early speed, and I think it sets up beautifully for Simplification. I like the 1 Strike Hard. If you're going to play a horse in this spot, I think if you need, and maybe even play both, maybe you play the 1 and 3 together in this spot, try to catch the exactor or something like that. Strike Hard reminds me a lot of Stiletto Boy in the Pegasus, of a horse that I don't think is going to win. But here's the thing. You look at that past form, this horse is right there all the time with all the favorites. Finished second to White Abario, finished second to Simplification.
And they were supposed to run to Tampa, right? And they had a little issue, just a small issue, just a sickness and scratched.
Yep, had a sickness and scratch, but had a rough trip at that Sam F. Davis, and still finished 4th and was making up ground at the end.
I like that race.
So, and so this is a horse that's been working out nicely. and the inside's not great. But here's the thing: this horse likes to come from behind a little bit. So if this horse does get shuffled back into mid pack, it's not the end of the world. There's going to be a ton of early speed with Classic Causeway, with Charge It, with White Barrio, and so I like horses in this race that are going to come from off the pace. And so that's why if I'm going to go somewhere, I'm going to go with Strike Hard for $250. And like I said, I love Simplification. I think this race plays out. That's another horse I've been on really since that November or October 23rd race where he broke his maiden. But I can, if you're, getting to the end and you've used a lot of money on favorites, Strike Hard, I think you could do a lot worse than that. This horse, again, a horse that doesn't really turn in any bad performances except for that one at the Iroquois. Otherwise, has run up against very strong competition and always held his own.
We hadn't even got musical at all. We could towards
there we go.
We could towards the outside with Clapton or with Steel Sunshine. Now I will say, I don't like to look at a lot of the things that Clapton said nowadays. He's gone down the deep end a little bit. But we could Steal My Sunshine.
Yes.
Nonetheless, I'm actually going right next door, Matt.
Okay. A lot of people are on this horse. I've been hearing. Oh, Captain.
Yeah. And from a stable duel standpoint, at 20 to 1, I think this is a really nice horse to use because you can look at the pattern and you can look at the progression here. So debuted at Gulfstream Park. She showed speed that day, winning back in August, going 5.5 furlongs, crushed. And then didn't run from August to January. Showed back up in January and was third, going 6 furlongs in the Limehouse. Just didn't get a good beginning and just sort of picked up some pieces there. Was off from January to March, showed back up in the Fountain of Youth in March, and I actually thought the race was pretty good. We can take a look back at O Captain here when the number 11 in third in this race. So O Captain, kind of a slowish start, and then they just decide to get over. Let's get over down towards the inside. Let's save some ground here. So going into the turn, O Captain is dead last and ends up, about 9 lengths off, but that's a better trip than grabbing a hold, getting in the middle, taking up back and forth. It was a decisive move. I liked it. It's like, let's go to the back. And
it's always better to do. I always prefer when I'm watching, I'd always prefer to see a jockey just go, listen, we're going to the back. Just not even try. It's those mid-pack races where they end up checking and getting, horse backs up into them and then they get boxed. Those are the worst. And so, just get in the back. You're going to be clear. You can, if you need to swing out, you can. If you need to go in, you can. It just gives you a lot more flexibility.
Yeah, they tried to angle him towards the outside a little bit to get some of the dirt out of his face, some of the kickback there. So they had him a little more in the middle of the racetrack, but he's just sort of waiting patiently at the back of the pack and will start to move nicely. And he's shown progression in all 3 of his starts on the buyer scale. If you're just looking at like speed figures, he's had nice improvement in each one. So if he were to improve again and take a step forward, that would put him right on the wire with these. Obviously, you've got Joel coming aboard. So someone who, with a stone cold closer like this, or a horse who we think is going to be coming from the back, Joel is as good as any at making the call, making the decision. And look at O Captain now. He's, just coming onto your screen. He's going to come down the center of the racetrack. He's going to close very well, and he's going to finish third in here. This was his first start in a couple months. This was his, his longest start, his first time going long. Yep. I think there are a lot of reasons why this horse can step forward. Lots of pace on paper. You mentioned Classic Causeway, King of Truth, Charge It, White Barrio, Simplification can also be close if they want. There could be a lot of speed in here. And I think it sets up nicely for O Captain. 20 to 1 on the morning line with Joel. I don't think we're going to get 20 to 1 come post time. No. I think this was one of those horses that I would not be shocked if they open up at about 5 to 1.
Yeah. And I think a horse like Papacat, for instance, might balloon up to 30 to 1 or something like that. Like there's going to be a lot of fluctuation. But I do think that, a lot of people are just going to hone in on those top 4 of Charge It, Classic Causeway, White Barrio, and Simplification. So those 4 are going to take on a ton of money. And so while I think, the 1 and the 9 are probably going to
take some money,
they're going to take some. You're still going to get good money.
They're going to be 8 to 1 or over, right? Yeah. They probably deserve to be more like 8 to 10 to 1 shots there.
Yep.
But I think sometimes what ends up happening is when the horse's line is really high, everybody goes, 20 to 1. And then you get the overreaction. Whereas like if they were just posted at about 8 or 10 to 1, most people would probably go, oh, okay. Like that's
Yep.
probably where they fit, and they wouldn't get all excited about them. So if that ends up being where they settle, it wouldn't shock me if they get cut in about half, the 2 horses that we like. But it looks like a fun Florida Derby where you
Yeah.
bring in Classic Causeway, who's been impressive, and he's going to, at the very least, add some speed to the party here.
Yeah, I mean, that's a horse that just breaks so beautifully every single time. I mean, it just looks like he shot out of a cannon coming out of the gate. I mean, the only horse that I think Forbidden Kingdom maybe has a little bit better early speed. I think maybe the horse Early Voting, one of Chad Brown's horses up in New York, maybe can flash a little bit more speed. But I mean, both of his breaks at Tampa have just been out of this world of the Sam Davis and the Tampa Bay Derby. So, I like that horse a lot. Did take a little bit of a step back. That last race was a little slower than I think a lot of people, I think it was one of those things visually we all kind of saw it was a little slow, and it kind of came back that way in the buyer speed figures. And so this horse is going to face a lot of pressure though up front.
Yep.
And so that's why
more than he has recently,
yes,
most likely, right?
And against a better caliber of horse is going to be challenging up front with White Abarrio, with potentially Simplification,
kind of
stalking.
quick turnaround too.
Yeah,
he
I was surprised that he
12.
didn't go. Yeah. I mean, that's why they originally talked about going to the Bluegrass,
because you sort of in between, right? And it's like, I guess if you go here, you get more time to the Derby, but you have the quick turnaround here. You go to the Bluegrass, you have the quicker turnaround. So it's apples and oranges. And they said they thought the horse was feeling good right now. So you know what? Take a shot now, and maybe you get that fitness out of it that you'd like for the Derby. As nice, we rattled through that 14 race card, Maddie. I really appreciate you jumping on Thursday night. For those of you who are Stable Duel fans or just horse racing fans, Matt, myself, and our friend Barry Spears, every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time, we do a show called This Weekend in Stable Duel. And it's similar to this, but we just go through different races at different tracks. We'll go through each race. We'll give out the horses that we like. We'll kind of talk about, how we might play Stable Duel lineups, but we'll talk about even more than just Stable Duel from a gambling standpoint. We'll show some replays and we'll dive into DRF past performances. And I like what our show is because it's fun. We normally are able to cover 3 or 4 tracks for a couple different days with a few horses each. But this weekend, I felt like we needed to have that singular focus because there's big money up for grabs at Gulfstream, right?
Big money. I mean, a $40,000 contest, $10,000 to the winner. But here's the kicker. The top 8 all take home at least $1,000. The top 60 all double their money. So it's a $60 buy-in. And if you finish in the top 60, you take home $120. So that's not bad at all. I mean, that's all the benefit of entering a few different entries. And, maybe one hits really high and maybe, you get one coming in 59th place. Beauty is you double up on that 59th place one. So I love playing these big weekends. I love when they really spread the winnings out across the board to a lot of different folks. Brings a lot of new people in the game. Should be a lot of fun.
Matt, good luck to you this weekend, buddy. Appreciate you always hanging out and helping out. Did another fantastic job with your handicapping. Shout out to our buddy Barry. We always miss when he's not aboard with us. I feel like
the sniper should be down at Gulfstream, I believe.
Park, so go out and
see him,
hang out with him. Yeah,
absolutely.
Go check him out. We've had a nice triumvirate over the last couple months as we've come together. Good luck to Barry. Good luck to you, my friend. And make sure to get those entries in and play, race, win.
Better, you want to spread your pony knowledge wide. Oh, better, I got a place where winning ain't tough to do. You wanna be cool, Stable Duel. Your horse racing fantasy.